Hello folks, Podbrew.com here, Arnepuls again here at the mic, continuing reviewing Shadows over Innistrad, the new upcoming set for Magic the Gathering. Previously I've covered, I think, more than a third of the set in terms of constructed, so mostly about standard and modern and a bit about legacy. This time around I wanna cover new cards also through that prism, but also bring you some considerations about the limited environment and what I think would be amazing. Also a bit of announcement. Basically, I want to produce an article about the new set and its impact, and I think the center topic would be available cards in terms of how you need to answer them and what you have to answer them. So basically, threats and answers. And then I think I would dedicate another material source. I don't know exactly in what form or shape I would arrange this, but I want to bring you guys a bunch of deck lists, some sample build-ups for standard with the new set. So I hope you would enjoy this and enjoy this part of the reviews as well. Okay. So, first new card that we see in this arrangement, in this spoiler, which has been shown up lately, this Gold Knight Castigator Angel. Okay, it's single color, it's 4 mana, it's 4/9, which is big, but it has a bunch of weird drawbacks. The good parts are, of course, flying haste. So you pay for it, and you can immediately smash for 4 with a creature which has evasion, but the drawbacks are you would receive double the damage, and any damage source that will target Castigator would also deal double damage to it. I think about it this way. In aggressive beatdown strategies against control decks that don't win very quickly, that would often have like only few threats, that would be rather clunky and slow sometimes. These drawbacks are not that huge, and not all the decks have damage. Some mid-range control decks would have just some big creatures which you might be able just to remove with your own removal, and then it's not a huge issue. And then if you're a beatdown deck, basically you don't care about your own life total as much, as long as you think you can finish them off quicker than they would kill you. So I think it's quite a decent card. The drawbacks are significant, which makes the card kind of balanced. I do like it. It will be pretty hard to deck build in such a way that it won't bite you, but it's possible. Then we have the Savassin's Judgment, another red card for normal cost without madness. You basically get a sorcery speed, fire, or twin bolt, but for madness you get a axe costed fire or twin bolt kind of card. So also that makes it in a way instant if you have a way to use madness instantly with a creature that just says discard a card, and it doesn't say that you only can use this ability at a sorcery speed. So in a lot of situations it would have it would be an instant, and not only it's an instant fireball which you can also use while also getting benefits from the cards that require you to discard a card. You can also split it up any way you want, and not just between planeswalkers and creatures, it's between creatures and players, so it doesn't have any limitations there like on some cards we have seen in the past few years that would not directly hit players. So it's amazing. I think it will be quite played. It does certainly have limitations, But Madness is not the hardest mechanic to actually use. I think it's with this set, at least in standards, it will be much easier to activate Madness than Delirium, I think. Then we have another good uncommon 2 red drop, which is okay. I think it was out there last time, but I haven't really checked it out. Enters, pings 1 to face, and then each upkeep, if you have Delirium, it does 1 more damage. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So pretty decent for limited, I think. Just a 2 power 2 drop for limited at uncommon with some useful abilities and potentially playable in constructed. I don't know. There is a chance. We could see some red deck actually reincarnating. Then we get another playable like human, a 2 drop, single color, 2 mana 2/2, okay, and then an upkeep. If you have 4 more creatures, you transform this thing, and then it becomes XX equal to number of creatures you control. And at the end step, you get a bonus token, a 1/1, to grow this thing even bigger. Pretty good card, and it seems like humans are gonna be a thing for sure. Now I'm getting even more solidified, in my opinion, that there are gonna be enough playable cards to make this a very viable archetype in standard. I mean, green-white humans. Then this card, it wasn't really spoiled in English, so I'll have to click here. This is bonkers. This is just bonkers. I mean, we get a single color with single colored mana requirement in the card. So 3 mana free. When it attacks, if you have Delirium, you get a free token into play, tapped and attacking every time it attacks. So it's like a miniature grave titan with requirement, but this card is still looking very good, and I think it might be actually playable not just in standard and not only in commander. It might actually do something in modern once the format becomes less broken and some things will be fixed and there will be some mid-range wars, etc. The card is pretty powerful. Yeah, would die to lightning bolt in modern, so what? I think dredge strategies in modern could use this as a 1/2 off. Seems alright. Basically, if it survives the turn, then we got quite a good deal. And in standard, that card just gonna be absurd. I think it will die, but still, it's 3 mana card. Then we have another playable red card, which I'm not super excited about, but I won't be surprised if it would see a lot of play. You got a double red 2/2 creature with first strike. With Delirium, it has double strike. Fine, but I think in that red decks, in essentially mono-red decks in standard, activating Delirium would be sort of hard, and then 2/2 first strike for 2 is not really striking as a lot of damage potential. So that's other devil which we saw previously, that pings every turn sometimes and pings when it enters, is probably even better than this in constructed. Then to the right of this wolf we see a pretty good card for the green-white humans. Again, 3/2 for free. When a land enters, you get to investigate, so you get a clue token. And then when you sacrifice a clue, you put a counter on this dude. Pretty good deal for me. Okay, there are no fetch lands, etc. But still, free power, free drop, which is the right creature type. If it gets you a clue at least once, that's already fine. Basically, that will mean it will be sort of like Elvish Visionary in a way, which is okay. So not really busted card, but I think you would probably want to play like 1 or 2 in your standard humans deck. It's okay. Yes, there are no fetch lands, etc., but I think it's still good. Then another card for red, which I think would be one of the reasons that some kind of a classic red deck wins will come back, is the Sin Prodder. 3 mana, 3/2 with essentially evasion, and then on your upkeep, you reveal the top card. You get to either draw it or they put it into your graveyard and take damage equal to its cost to face. It's probably not going to be a lot of damage, but it will add up quite a bit. Basically, it either draws you a card every turn or they take couple damage every turn, as long as this thing is in play. To me, this seems absurd. I think it's really good, unless I'm missing something. I don't think I do at this point. Yeah, very strong card, and potentially even I don't know, legacy playable in some how to say, not absurdly aggressive red decks. Maybe in some mid ranges which can actually win fast. I don't know. I really like this card, and I think it could be played beyond standard in terms of constructed, and I'm not just talking about Highlander or Commander. Speaking a little bit about limited, there are a bunch of interesting 7 and 8 mana beefy creatures which you would probably end up playing in sealed, at least, so that means Perilous Weekend. But I haven't seen a lot of ramp, a lot of mana acceleration. I've seen some, but not like ridiculous amount. And I'm not so sure. Probably in sealed that would be crazy. And the general stance is that you don't play big creature drops in drafts most of the time. But I think in this set, which looks to me quite aggressive and not really that slow, you would actually often think an extra time before slamming some 7 or 8 drops to your seal deck even. Because the format does seem to be relatively fast. There are a lot of good 2 drops, some decent 1 drops, a lot of awesome 3 drops. And it seems to be a creature centric set, like very heavy creature centric, with all the tribal themes and so on. Then we have a very peculiar card. I'm not sure even I can pronounce it properly. Triskaidekaphobia. I think it's a real word. I'm not sure. It could be a made-up one, but it sounds like it could be a real word. Basically, 4 mana enchantment at upkeep. You choose one, either both with exactly 13 life. Lose the game, then each player gains 1 life or each player loses 1 life. Definitely funky in multiplayer commander and formats like that, but don't try this in normal constructed. I don't think the card is that good. I do like the Kamigawa card 4 mana. I think sorcery, deal 10 if they have exactly 10, something like this. That card is much better. This one takes a turn to be viable, and then it still has this requirement, and it's black, which is not really the burn color, etc. So this is really weird. It's a sweet card, it's very unique, but please don't try this at home unless it's in some very funny commander multiplayer deck. There, of course, this card will be very fun. Really interesting. Okay, then we have a 5 mana green rare werewolf, which is XX and equals the number of cards in your hand. And when it enters, you get to draw a card. I really love that combination. And then, if no spells were cast last turn, you get to transform this thing, and it becomes really enormous. It becomes equal to the total of cards in all players' hands. And its vigilance and trample. I really do like the fact that if somebody played 2 spells in a turn, this thing transformed back, and it's not like they're gonna draw an extra card. It's just the same creature. It's still gonna be relatively big, but this way this card is at least more or less balanced. Otherwise I think it will be bonkers if it would never flip back. It would be just enormous. Creature with trample and vigilance, it would just dominate the board. I think it will be playable in constructed in the werewolves deck. I think that tribal is also becoming decent, even though last time when Innistrad was a thing and there were some tribal decks, very few versions of those tribal decks and very few tribals actually made it to competitive play. Werewolves was not one of them. I don't know what's gonna happen this time around. It may not be the Cinderella story this time. Werewolves might not rise to really competitive play, but for store play, yeah, you can definitely assemble just with this one set. Well, I mean, at the core with this one set in terms of your creature base, playable werewolf deck, I think is possible. Then moving on, I haven't talked much about the Soul Swallower. I think last time around, basically 4 mana free trample at upkeep. If there are 4 more cards, yeah, Delirium. You get to put 3 counters on it. So compare it to Dragon Master Outcast, and to some extent also to Scoot Mob, which was in the Rise of Eldrazi, I think, and then reprinted in Modern Masters 2. Both those cost 1 mana. This one costs 4. This thing has trample, yes, and it does put like 3 counters on it every turn. But I think getting a lot of lands into play is much easier than activating Delirium for a lot of decks. And Scoot Mob puts, I believe, something like 4 counters on it. Dragon Master Cast provides you separate extra creatures which have flying, and they're all 5/5s. So let's say this card doesn't compare well with those cards, and Outcast is still gonna be standards legal for a while. Coming back to the werewolves theme, I think one of the better uncommons for that deck, it's a 3-mana enchantment, but it has flash, which is insane because what it does is that it basically pumps all your wolves and werewolves and gives them trample. And this thing has flash. It's basically a glorious anthem for that deck. Add flash at instant speed and it gives trample. It's insane. It's limited to a tribal, but in that deck it will be just absurd. Okay, Call the Blade Line. Not very cool. Card for constructed for standard and for limited. I think in standard you wouldn't play more than a 1 main deck, that's for sure, and then maybe an extra one in the sideboard against a control-ish deck to have this kind of instant speed stream of threats. Somebody pointed out, I don't remember where, maybe right here, is that it does synergize well with Olivia, for example. It gives the tokens counters and haste. It's sad that you have to pay mana for the ability, but there is no tap or anything like that, and it's one of any mana, and it's discard any card. In limited, I think this card will be even funnier, because then you can do all sorts of funny things with it. Harness the Storm, definitely not a limited card, probably not a modern card, although I can't say for sure because with such cards it's hard to say. What I really hope is some cool deck in standard, some cool combo deck. Last time Innistrad was around, we had the Pyromancer's Ascension combo deck because of the Past in Flames and stuff, and Thoughtscour and Lightning Bolts I think was there too, to combo off with the Ascension. In Modern it's not that spicy because you still have to pay mana for that spell. For example, if you have a Manamorphose in the graveyard and then you cast another one with this thing in play, you get to cast that Manamorphose as well, but you will have to pay for it. Yes, you would get the discounts from Electromancer, but I think it's just too cute, and the Pyromancer deck, the Storm deck on Modern, doesn't really need this thing to function well, unless something crazy and something gets banned in that deck, which I don't think there should be any bans for that deck. But I'm really hoping for a combo deck in standard. That'll be very nice. For a change, nothing like really busted, something clunky, something that would require a lot of PCs and etc. Not very fast, but I do want a combo deck in standard for a change, even though it's probably not gonna happen. Open World Mysteries, probably going to be better in limited than in standard. Basically, when a non-token from your set dies, you get to get a clue token, and then when you sacrifice the clue token, you put a 1/1 token into play. Sadly, you can't chain that, so those 1/1's not gonna give you more clues, but it's still a very nice card. Very grindy, potentially playable in standard. For the human stack, because the tokens it makes are humans. Basically a nice One too often the sideboards for humans deck against control decks. You basically get to draw more cards, get to put more tokens, so it's gonna act in a way like Grim High-Specs for the humans deck. Then some good uncommons, which I think would also be cool in limited as well. 2 mana to 1 is already okay. When you sacrifice a clue of which this format is full of, you transform this thing. Then it becomes afraid to prowess, and when it deals damage to a player, you get to put more clues. Pretty cool card, probably more playable in limited than in standard. But let's just say I won't be surprised if it makes it into constructed play. The card has potential. It's not so ridiculous, but it's interesting. It's interesting. It's definitely not Delver level by any means, but it's curious. Now here is Machinations. 2 mana enchantments. For 2 mana, you get to deal 1 damage to a blocker. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. I'll just say extremely annoying to play against unlimited. Probably one of the better picks in draft. Very cool cards, very annoying. And because of so many great things it does, I won't be surprised if in some boards this kind of slide type of deck it will see playing constructed. I like it. It's target creature you control, so that's pretty cool. Of course it will be ridiculous if it will be all creatures, but I like that it targets. You get to choose your destiny. Then, oh, that's a functional reprint of Groundskeeper. Interesting. Huh. It's a very interesting card. I'm talking about this 1 mana, 1 green, the 1/1 that for just 2 mana gets a basic land from your graveyard into your hand. It could be pretty funny, especially with all the madness going on. Definitely not a constructed card. I think I would be really no, I mean not a limited card. Sorry, I'll be very surprised if I would see that getting to work in limited. And constructed could be doing quite a few nasty things. Sad that it only brings back basics, so that's unfortunate. But it's a fun card. It's never been absurd, but it could be interesting. I think it is in a reprint. Let's check. Okay, it maybe hasn't been a functional reprint, but it feels very much so. Moving on. Okay, let's cover this. Rise from the Tides. 6 mana, sorcery. Put 2/2 zombie token tapped into play for each instant sorcery card in your graveyard. Ooh, oh my goodness, that's gonna be pretty sick and limited, I think. And well, it's not gonna do a whole lot in standard because you have mass removals and counter spells around, and this card is kind of slow. But I do like these kind of cards in limited. It basically says build around me card, and there is some milling involved in this set, so filling your graveyard is not gonna be that hard, because of discard abilities, and all that, and you need to activate your delirium sometimes. Yeah, this is pretty sweet. I really look forward to actually kicking some ass in drafts and sealed with this card. Most likely in draft, because in sealed making this deck with a pre-seeded pool is gonna be kinda hard, but if it works out I would be very happy. I like those kind of cards. I really enjoyed the busted archetypes from the old Innistrad for limited. Those spiders with flashback, those enchantment that pings for flashback, the mill your whole deck, and Memory's Journey to shuffle back cards and then win with a Laboratory Maniac and things like that. This feels like one of those cards that will power up something similar in limited. Oh snap, this could be a very cool limited and standard card. Basically what it does is it's a disperse with a bonus. If you have a zombie in play, they discard the card. Imagine they don't have cards in hand, and this could get out of hand. You bounce something, and then they have to discard. So a lot of the time, surprisingly, a lot of the time, I think this could function as a 2-man removal, if you time it right, of course. It's awesome. Limited card. Disperse is quite okay in pretty much any format. And then if you get to use this bonus, this card becomes really sick. It becomes really sick. So we see this push, for at least for limited, for blue-black zombies. This happened last time as well. But let's just say that for standard, you don't have to limit yourself to blue-black, because even though last time in competitive scene zombies in standard, there were blue-black builds, but there were also some mono-black builds, there were some black-red builds, etc. So let's just say that for standard, you don't have to associate zombie tribal with blue-black combination, because that's probably the story. If you want to go deep in limited, of course you can go real deep in standards as well with a blue-black color combination, but that's not something you have to do. You can mix it up, because you're base black, that's for sure. Angelic Purge is huge. I know you heard this word like really often during Magic coverage as well, but it is great. It's common. It costs 3 mana. Okay, it's just sorcery speed. Okay, you probably will have to sacrifice a token, of which you probably can have a lot in this set. And also, you can just sacrifice a clue, for which you think you would never have 3 mana to like eat it up and get a card. There are clues. You can just sacrifice a clue. That's fine. And then you get to basically deal with almost any permanent in play. This is absurd. Okay, it doesn't deal with a planeswalker, that's fine, but it's a common. It costs 3 mana. It exiles artifact, creature, enchantments. It's sick. I think it's sick. Of course, like, because it's sorcery speed, it won't be that absurd for constructed, but I think this is a constructed playable card. I think decks like green-white humans, which do get to make some tokens and make some clues, they would play this card main deck. At least 2 off, if not like 4 off, because it, like, okay, it's sorcery, but it deals with anything, and it exiles it in a format where you have like zombies and like some other graveyard synergies. You want to exile things, so that's it's great. It's a great card. It truly is a great card. Moving on, some good limited cards which don't really inspire me a whole lot, but are definitely okay. Oh, we have a reprint of Macabre Waltz. That's pretty cool. Didn't see that. Seems very logical, of course, for this set. Macabre Waltz was originally in Dissension in Old Ravnica, and then we had its reprint, I think, in Origins. Yeah. So even after Zendikar gets out, we still get to have like Macabre Waltz. It didn't really have an impact on standard before, but because of all the zombies and stuff, this could change a little bit. 2 mana, double raise that, discard the card, etc. Yeah, I like to see this card in the set for limited and for constructed as well, because of the zombie decks and so on. Just the wind is pretty sweet. Maybe not so much constructed playable, but you basically get a card which is fine at 2 mana. It's functionally an unsummon, and then you get to cast it for a proper cost, which is 1 for madness. Yeah, definitely like seeing this kind of card for limited. Very simple, nothing fancy, but efficient and really nice to have around. A card that I think I haven't really talked much about in the previous 2 parts. This one you can consider be called more constructed and a better limited part 1 or whatever, even though it is essentially like part 3 of the reviews chain. Pieces of the Puzzle is a pretty good card. 3 mana sorcery, reveal to 5. Up to 2 instant sorceries from them into your hand and the rest of your graveyard. We saw an enchantment that becomes a ritual if it's played in a later turn. Then we have this. Then we have a card that actually cares about stuff in graveyards. If you have multiple copies of those cards, so we're talking about constructed here, and you get to cast stuff out of your graveyard. So this is a very fixed, very balanced Pass and Flames impersonation. So I don't know, I like where this is heading. There are still quite a few cards not spoiled yet, so I have my hopes, and I hope something emerges. Jeskai Ascendancy gets out, then for those players who like to do some weird shenanigans and dig through their deck, etc., and try to win before they die in some goofy way, well, we need something. We need some hope, some option, which might not be very strong, but still competitive. So to empower that kind of deck, we have Fevered Visions. Basically, it's a Howling Mine or Dictate of Krufix, but then it only throws you cards at the end step, which is probably okay. And then if your opponent at the end step, I imagine, ends up with 4 more cards in their hand, you deal 2. So what I think is gonna end up happening is that we're gonna get a pool of cards to build not a 1-turn kill deck, but this annoying, grindy, non-creature deck in the style of the Ebony Owl from Kamigawa, where you would just slow down your opponent with bounce spells and some counter spells and so on, and both would draw a bunch of cards, but you would be the one actually dealing damage, and they would be significantly slowed down through a lot of different means and cards and so on, and you would just keep on sculpting your hands with a bunch of dig spells and just slowly ping them to death with this thing or something else. So yeah, I would love to build this kind of deck, but I think to come up with a decent list I would need to see the entire set, which will happen pretty soon. But so far I have some ideas where this is heading, and I hope there will be some cool parts for this deck coming forward in the next few days. So most likely we're not getting a 1-turn combo deck, but this slowly a little bit annoying but still very sweet deck, which would be quite vulnerable still, especially I suppose against faster hyper aggressive decks, and sometimes against prepared control decks too. But it will be cool to have this kind of deck for a change. It won't be as busted most likely, because we would never gonna have a playable extra turn card kind of card in standard. Yes, we have this mono blue turns based extra turns based deck in modern, and having this kind of package in standard will be really too much. Likely we're not gonna have that, so the deck will be balanced and somewhat fair, but it's nice to have that kind of option available out there in standard. I want to talk about some artifacts for limited. I do like the Fraben Gargoyle, I do like the Neglected Heirloom. Not absurd cards, but I think they're playable. They're better than fillers. They're very flexible, that's their main benefit. This card is basically fine in any deck. It's fine early on, it's fine later on. 1 mana 2/2 defender is fine in Carlos, and later in the game when you have a lot of spare mana, you transform this into a 4/2 flyer, which is cool, and it doesn't have defender anymore, so you can attack with it, etc. Love this card. Nothing busted, but very useful for certain decks to glue things together. Very fine pick in pretty much any deck, especially where you're struggling with your colors in draft and so on, where you don't know where necessarily what colors you're gonna pick. So it could be a very nice pick when you're so undecided, just to be on the safer side. Then the Neglected Heirloom is funky. Probably not a constructed card, but I don't know, maybe in Werewolf's deck it could be okay. At the baseline you get a 1 mana equipment with equip cost just 1. Equipped creature gets +1/1, which is already fine. And when that creature transforms, you transform this thing as well, which I'm not sure whether in terms of rules does that mean it gets to stay on the creature because it's the same card. The transformed creature is the same card, So I recommend checking out the FAQ. For the sets, I think what's gonna end up happening is that they're just gonna stay together, because otherwise you'll have to pay free to equip it to something after transforming, which is not great. But then, okay, if that creature dies, you get a very strong equipment that gives +3/+3 first strike. Yes, okay, for 3 mana, but I think that's okay. I won't be surprised to see it played quite a bit in limited. Won't be surprised to see it in Werewolves decks and standard, although I think Werewolves gonna be one of the least playable archetypes in standard, just because how weird it is. You need to transform your dudes, you have to skip playing spells some turns and then have an option of having good instants or some instant speed abilities, etc. It sometimes becomes kind of weird. Let's see, do I have something else for you this time? I want to cover more cards because I think next time I'll get to talk to you about this new set would probably be when the whole spoiler is out, and then I'll talk more, much more about limited, because right now there still could be some things that could change some strategies and some considerations. Okay, it's I'm actually curious how relevant the cards like Stoic Builder would be. 3 mana to 3 human enters play, gives you a land from your graveyard to your hand. Seems strong, it's any land, so it's better than Cartographer back from the days, and this card very well might be even constructed playable. You get a good deal, like either way you look at this. Seems kinda strong. Not quite Reflector Mage strong, but it might get close in the right deck. Might get close. Something tells me that we're gonna get some Cycle lands or something. I would be surprised if we would, but I would be very pleased if that will happen, because it would make that card and some others way stronger. It will help with Delirium a lot. There are some other cards bringing stuff back from your graveyards, not just creatures. Oh yeah, like this Groundskeeper, which we talked about today. Okay, well, it brings back basic lands. So yeah, but to make Groundskeeper good for limited, there would have to be more playable cards like these two folks that ask you to discard a card to get a benefit. And well, so far I don't see it. I do hate that this guy, the Duskwatch Recruiter, puts cards to the bottom, not to the graveyard, otherwise it would be really absurd. Will be probably there in the Werewolf stack. 2 mana 2/2 with a good ability to dig for more creatures, and then it transforms not from the ability, it transforms if there were no spells cast, and then you get a 3/3 body that makes your I believe creatures or werewolves cheaper. Not a very clear picture. Okay, it seems like it's gonna transform back. Well, which makes sense because sometimes you may want to do this intentionally to flip it and then use the ability to dig for more creatures. Okay, it makes all creatures cheaper, so effects like this may allow you to play not just werewolves in your deck. Okay folks, I think that's it for this time. Leave a like, leave a comment, I do reply to them. Leave me any feedback. Don't forget to subscribe or check out the website links in the description, etc. All that jazz. If you really do like the way I look at cards and what I'm up to when I'm thinking of archetypes and so on. I'll see you guys in probably the last video review for this set, and stay tuned for the text article and prototype deck lists for standard. Goodbye folks.